For example, in Argentina, you have reenactments about the independence, okay? And I think this issue I'm going to raise here could be perfectly applied, I think, to the States, for example, okay? So, or maybe to Canada, okay? But maybe I'm wrong. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Okay, so the reenactment is basically a kind of repetition, dramatization of the experience on the master narrative in relation to the independence. Okay, so the independence. Okay, somebody's go to a square, read a declaration. Okay, blah 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 blah. Okay, but when this happened at the beginning of the 19th century, the territory which became independent from the metropole was this size. So in the case of Argentina, it's 1/3 of the present territory. But now when you get this reenactment, which by the way is compulsory in the schools, for example, the natives in the south, the Mapuches, okay, as students of Argentina, okay, they have to celebrate the reenactment. But what I mean, by the beginning of 18th century, okay, in Argentina, in the States, and in Canada, I mean, those regions were not independent from the metropole. So what are they celebrating? Okay, so this is what I call a kind of geographical contradiction. Okay, so there is official history, so there is no space for alternative views. Okay, so we became independent from Spain. Okay, we became independent from UK. Okay, yeah, but how? Why? I mean, there is not much space for that. Okay, for example, did the slaves become independent? Did the women became independent? So doesn't look like. Okay, so it's basically religious, literally. So for that reason, I thought when Vanessa said it's a big church, I said, well, basically it's a church, okay? So, as a matter of fact, also Vanessa says at the beginning of his book, which is, by the way, a terrific book, reenactment is a little bit like religious ceremonies, okay? Okay, so you say, at this moment, you know, this is Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ died, and you know, and this is the bread and the blood, and you know, and when you do this, when you are is attending to this, what are you doing? You are repeating a cycle, okay? I mean, from a spiritual point of view, it's extraordinary experience. I mean, I love it, but has nothing to do with history, because history implies separating past and present. You don't separate past and present, and you don't look for causal relationship. Peter would say causality. Okay, if you don't look for those concepts, there is no history. What you have is probably kind of revisiting the past, but this is a different thing. Okay. Anyway, so basically it's a dramatization. Okay, the past is speaking to you directly. Okay, there's no intermediate. Okay, and the truth value is precisely found through a dramatized reality. It's the dramatization which is speaking to you, okay? Like in your museum, okay? You are there, everything is dark, and the bombing are, you know, falling down, and you feel like the people who were, you know, killed by the, you know, German and Italian planes, okay? Okay, so in Latin America, in many places, Chile, Argentina, Uruguay, Peru, you know, they are inside the school, okay? They are not outside of the school. They are celebrated inside the school, okay? They start at first grade, and very often even before. For example, one of our colleagues, Alicia Barreiro, okay, one of our colleagues, you know, her baby is about 3 years old, and she went to the school, and she went through a reenactment. Okay, so they are very popular. Okay, so you have dancing and you have food, and it's a party, and the family get there, and in secondary school they are very close to military parades. So at secondary school, all this folklore, of format disappear, and suddenly the military thing appear. Okay, um, so well, this is a picture which is, you find, you say actos escolares is what they are called in Argentina. Actos escolares in YouTube, you will find thousand of those reenactments, uploaded by teachers or whatever. Okay, just very briefly here. Okay, of course these are the heroes. Okay, the guys who go to the main building, of the city, and declare the independence, blah blah blah. Okay, but very interesting. You see different type of girls. Okay, so for example, the black ones are always selling empanadas. Okay, so if you are a black one, so the only chance you have is to sell empanadas. Okay, so we could also mention, say, of course, the heroes never are women. Okay, and there is no possibility. Okay, it's very interesting. There's a coincidence with the curriculum contents. Okay, so the reenactments are exactly this most important events on the curriculum. Okay, so that means that when a student get the curriculum contest when she's for example 12, she already got 6 reenactments. Okay, so so it's also very interesting that they provide the structure of the school calendar. Okay, so they order the experience. Okay, okay, so you have the pre-independence reenactment, the independent reenactment, and by October you have the so-called discovery of America, blah blah blah. Okay, so very interesting. Okay, if we go into history, let's go into history. Okay, I like it. Okay, so what happened with the historical origin of the reenactment? Why were they created? Very often people, not only students, according to our research, but also teachers, and of course parents, they think the reenactments were created immediately after the independence. Okay, so by 1810 have the independence, at 1811 they celebrate the reenactment. Okay, so as fast as possible. Okay, wrong. Okay, wrong. They were created by the end of 19th century. Okay, why they were created? Well, because Argentina started receiving a lot of immigration, Italian, basically Italian. The first wave was basically Italian, and later on Spanish, and also Central European, Germans, And the Ministry of Education started being worried because they say, okay, these people come here and they have their own national holidays, and they have celebrate their dances, and so we have to, and this is exactly how he wrote the official document. Okay, we have to create a pure original Argentinian identity. Okay, let's create this reenactment, and this is how they started. Okay, and of course it was perfectly established how this invented tradition, as Hobsbawm would call them, okay, started, okay, and they really don't change much in 120 years, okay. So they're basically, the same thing. They are basically a, identification device. This is basically, in my opinion, what they are. Okay, they are created to be identified with, So, okay, it's something very important in my opinion here. It's a performative. Okay, so any performance is really producing an important effect on the people because it's full of emotion and affect. It's dancing, singing, and it's very embodied. It's a very embodied type of thing. Okay, so as I mentioned before, it's basically a religious liturgy, and there is no difference between past and present. Okay, very two slides. The disadvantage, as I mentioned, is they don't include a historiographical view, and they transmit basically a glorification, okay, and idealization. The advantages is they produce an enormous interest. Children like it, okay? Parents like it. I think Barbara said today, history not only bite but history bore. Okay, this people like it. People is they don't get bored. Okay, they say so they and they offer an opportunity of dialogue, in my opinion. But I think this opportunity probably, I'm not sure. I think it's probably not being used very much. They are very much more related to civic education than history, but probably we need to discuss what kind of civic education we need, particularly in relation to history education. Thank you very much.